Chancellor Vexthul stared at the flood of emergency reports covering his desk. In just 2 weeks since humanity's withdrawal, 17 star systems had fallen into chaos. The galaxy that had seemed so stable and orderly was crumbling like a house built on sand. "Sir," his aide stammered, holding another data pad. "The Korthak Federation is requesting immediate military help. The Ravager pirates have attacked 3 of their outer colonies, and without human patrol ships, I know what the situation is." Vexthul's mandibles clicked in frustration. His 4 eyes tracked between multiple crisis displays at once. What about the tribute demands from the synthetic collective? "Getting worse every hour, sir. They have blockaded the Meridian trade route and are demanding payment from every merchant ship. The trading guilds are losing millions of credits daily." A holographic image materialized above Vexthul's desk. Director Elena Vasquez of the Zeridian Economic Council appeared, her usually calm face tight with worry. "Chancellor, we need to talk immediately about our financial crisis." Vexthul activated privacy screens around his work area. "Director, please tell me you have found a solution." Elena's laugh sounded bitter and hollow. "Our entire banking system depends on human credit guarantees. Without their backing, we are looking at complete monetary collapse within days. The human banks have withdrawn every credit from our territories. Surely we can establish other financial systems." "Chancellor, you do not understand," Elena interrupted. "Humans were not just part of our economy. They were the foundation holding it up. Their shipping companies moved our goods between worlds. Their factories supplied our technology. Their researchers developed our medicines. Their security forces protected our trade routes." On another screen, reports from frontier worlds painted an even worse picture. Without human agricultural experts, crop yields were failing on dozens of planets. Without human medical supplies, hospitals were rationing basic care. Without human peacekeepers, old territorial disputes were exploding into open wars. General Crix of the Beltar Military Command appeared on the Emergency Council communication feed. "Chancellor, we have a critical security problem. The Void Hunters have come out of the Dark Nebula and are raiding settlements across the Outer Rim. Our forces are spread too thin without human rapid response teams." "Cannot our combined fleets handle some pirates?" Vexthul demanded. General Crix's antenna drooped with defeat. "Sir, humans provided 60% of our patrol coverage and 90% of our intelligence gathering. We are flying blind out here." The irony cut deep into Vexthul's consciousness. The Council had feared human military expansion, never understanding how much they depended on human protection. They had seen human research stations as threats, not recognizing that human innovation drove technological progress for everyone. More reports flooded in from across Council space. On the industrial world of Karis Prime, factories had shut down because human-trained technicians were gone. On the medical center of Healing Station Beta, patients were dying because human doctors had been recalled. On the trade hub of Commerce, Central, shipping had ground to a halt because human logistics coordinators had departed. Dr. Carl Thompson, humanity's former science liaison, had once explained it during a private dinner months ago. "Chancellor, you see our capabilities as dangerous because you measure them against your own limitations. What you do not understand is that we have been holding back, not pushing forward. We have been careful not to advance too quickly, not to upset the established order." Now, with human restraint removed, the Council was learning just how much their established order had depended on human contributions. "Sir?" his aide interrupted urgently. "We have an incoming transmission from Earth. It is Ambassador Morrison." Vexthul straightened in his chair. Finally, perhaps the humans were ready to negotiate their return. "Put him through immediately." Jake Morrison's weathered face appeared on the main communication screen. But something was different about the human diplomat. Gone was the polite courtesy that had marked their interactions for decades. In its place was a cold professionalism that made Vexthul's exoskeleton feel chilled. "Chancellor," Jake said without any greeting pleasantries, "I am calling to inform you that the human colony of New Shanghai has declared independence from Council oversight. So have New Berlin, New Damascus, and 47 other human settlements that were within Council territory." "Ambassador Morrison, Surely we can discuss. I am also calling to inform you that these independent human colonies will be establishing their own trade networks, defense agreements, and research partnerships. They will not be bound by any council, regulations, or oversight. Vexthul felt his worst fears becoming reality. Not only had humanity left the council, but they were actively creating an alternative power structure. They were building competition. Furthermore, Jake continued, several non-human species have approached us about establishing direct relationships outside of council authority. We are evaluating these proposals carefully. The Chancellor's mandibles went completely still. If other species began abandoning the council for direct relationships with humanity, the entire galactic government would collapse completely. There would be nothing left. Ambassador Morrison, I believe there has been a terrible misunderstanding. The council is prepared to reconsider. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vexthul staring at an empty screen. His aide whispered what everyone in the room was thinking. Sir, what have we done? More reports arrived hourly. The Aquatic Alliance had lost contact with 12 of their underwater cities because human-maintained communication systems had failed. The crystalline hierarchy was reporting computation errors in their primary data cores because human software specialists were no longer available for maintenance. But the most disturbing reports came from the Intelligence Division. 3 major species were secretly negotiating with human representatives. The peaceful monks of Serenity Prime had formally requested human protection after council forces failed to stop raiders. The nomad fleets had offered exclusive trading rights to human merchants. Even some Zeridian worlds were considering defection to whatever new organization humans might create. Chancellor, Director Vasquez appeared again on the communication system. I have more bad news. Without human financial backing, we cannot maintain basic infrastructure. Power grids are failing on 17 worlds. Water purification systems are shutting down on 23 colonies. Transportation networks are collapsing everywhere. Vexthul realized the full scope of their mistake. They had not just expelled a troublesome species from their government. They had removed the load-bearing pillars that held up galactic civilization. Everything was falling down around them. What are our options? He asked weakly. Surrender, Elena replied bluntly. Complete, unconditional surrender. Beg them to come back and accept any terms they demand. But even as she spoke, they all knew it was too late. The humans were not coming back to fix the council's problems. They were building something new, something better, something that did not need the council at all. The galaxy's old order was dying, and there was nothing left to do but watch it crumble. Jake Morrison stood in the giant crystal room on Nexus Prime and watched 47 alien species decide humanity's fate. The room buzzed with whispers and clicks and strange sounds from creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some had 4 eyes, others had no eyes at all. Some breathed air, others breathed methane. But they all had one thing in common today. They wanted to put humans in their place. Chancellor Vexthul raised his clawed hand for silence. The insect-like alien had been planning this moment for years. His compound eyes gleamed as he looked down at the human ambassador. Jake had served in this room for 20 years, believing that different species could work together. Today that dream was dying. The vote is final, Vexthul announced. 38 species vote yes, 9 vote no. Humans are restricted to the Outer Rim territories only. No more expansion into the inner systems. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. The Outer Rim was a wasteland of dead worlds and empty space. It was like being told to live in a closet while everyone else got mansions. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Campbell whispered urgently. They want to cage us, Jake. If we accept this, we'll never be free. The Chancellor continued reading from his golden tablet. All human military ships must leave joint patrol duties immediately. Human research into quantum drive technology stops now. The Council will watch over all human science projects. Jake remembered the last 150 years. Humans had joined the galactic community as the newest members. They had been eager to help, eager to learn, eager to be good neighbors. They shared their medical knowledge when the plague of worlds killed billions. They shared their food when the Great Hunger struck the outer colonies. They fought and died alongside alien soldiers in the Void Wars against the machine invaders. But gratitude had turned to fear. Human technology advanced too fast. Human colonies grew too quickly. Human ships were too strong. Human minds were too clever. The older species decided that these newcomers were dangerous. Ambassador Riley from the Aquatic Alliance swam in her water tank and spoke through her translator. Humans must understand their place in the galactic order. They are still young, still learning. Restrictions will help them grow properly. General Crix from the Beltar military clicked his mandibles. Human weapons are advancing beyond acceptable limits. Their quantum drives could revolutionize space travel. This gives them unfair advantages. Director Martinez from the Synthetic. Collective processed data streams and spoken electronic tones. Human artificial intelligence research threatens the stability of synthetic life forms. Limitations are logical. Jake listened to excuse after excuse. They were afraid of human potential. They were afraid that humans might become equals instead of remaining junior partners. They were afraid that the galaxy might change. Dr. Campbell passed him a datapad. On it were the signatures of every human colony leader, every fleet commander, every research director. They had all agreed on what to do if this moment came. Jake looked at the pad and made his choice. He stood up slowly. The room fell silent. Even the constant humming of the translation devices seemed to quiet down. Jake was 62 years old and had spent his whole adult life in diplomatic service. He had believed in cooperation between species. He had believed in building a better galaxy together. Honored delegates, Jake said in a clear voice. For 150 years, humanity has served this council with dedication. We shared our medicine when your people were sick. We shared our food when your people were hungry. We fought beside you when enemies attacked us all. The room stayed quiet. Chancellor Vexidal stopped his nervous clicking. We built hospitals on your worlds. We taught farming techniques to your colonies. We designed better engines for your ships. We trained your soldiers. We defended your trade routes. We did all this because we believed we were partners. Jake reached into his diplomatic bag and pulled out a sealed document. It was humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Every human leader had signed it. Every human world had voted for it. But today, you have shown us the truth. Our friendship means nothing to you. Our help means nothing to you. Our loyalty means nothing to you. You see us as a problem to be controlled, not as partners to be respected. The delegates began to murmur. Some looked confused, others looked worried. Chancellor Vexthul's eyes widened. Therefore, by unanimous vote of all human colonies, we formally withdraw from the Galactic Council. This is effective right now. We will not attend your meetings anymore. We will not follow your rules anymore. We will not help with your projects anymore. Jake placed the withdrawal document on the speaking platform. The paper seemed tiny in the vast crystal room, but its words would shake the galaxy. All human ships will return to human space within 72 hours. All joint research projects are ended. All trade agreements are canceled. All defense treaties are void. Chancellor Vexthul finally found his voice. Ambassador Morrison, surely you cannot mean every human colony will be recalled from Council territory. Jake continued, cutting off the Chancellor. Every human business will close its doors in your space. Every human researcher will pack up their work and leave. Every human doctor will stop treating your people. Every human engineer will stop maintaining your systems. Jake turned toward the exit. His aide, Lieutenant Carter, walked beside him. As they reached the door, Carter whispered, "Sir, they have no idea what they have done, do they?" Jake smiled grimly. "No, Lieutenant. They think they have solved their human problem. They have no idea that they have destroyed their own civilization." The great doors of the council chamber closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Outside, human ships were already preparing to leave. The exodus would begin within hours. Behind them in the crystal room, 47 species sat in stunned silence, not yet understanding that they had just voted for their own destruction. They had wanted to contain humanity. Instead, they had set them free. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Nicole Barnes watched from the bridge of the UCS Defiance as the last human transport ship cleared Jupiter's massive gravity field. Around Earth, hundreds of orbital stations buzzed with activity like angry beehives. Ships that had been scattered across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy were coming home. "Commander Foster, give me the numbers," Nicole ordered. Her executive officer checked his displays and turned to face her. "Admiral, we have brought back 847 vessels from Council space. The civilian evacuation is 94% complete. Only essential personnel remain at the frontier stations, and they will be gone within 12 hours. Nicole nodded. In just 72 hours, humanity had done something that should have been impossible. They had pulled back their entire interstellar presence without losing a single ship or person. It was a miracle of organization that showed exactly why the other species had feared human efficiency. The bridge communications officer looked up from her station. "Admiral, we are receiving messages from the Zeridian colonies in Sector 7. They are asking us to continue security patrols. Their local defense forces cannot handle the pirate raids alone. Tell them their security is not our problem anymore," Nicole replied coldly. "They voted to remove us from their space. They can live with what comes next." Lieutenant Amy Peterson at the sensor station called out, "Admiral, priority message coming in from Senator Helen Wright." The senator's holographic image appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined. "Admiral Barnes, I am sure. You have seen the intelligence reports from Council territory. 3 major trade routes have fallen to pirates in just 2 days. The Korthak Federation is mobilizing their entire fleet to deal with civil unrest. The Synthetic Collective is demanding tribute payments from the Rim worlds." Nicole had indeed seen the reports. For decades, human patrol ships had kept the space lanes safe. Human rapid response teams had stopped conflicts before they could grow into wars. Human negotiators had solved disputes before they became bloodbaths. Now, all of that was gone. "The Chancellor has been sending messages every hour," Senator Wright continued. "He wants to negotiate our return to the Council. He is offering us better terms." "And our response?" Nicole asked, though she already knew what the senator would say. "Complete silence. Let them learn to run their galaxy without us." Dr. Patricia Stone's voice came over the communication system from the research division. "Admiral, you need to see the intercepts from the Zeridian capital world. Their entire economic system is failing." Nicole was not surprised. Humans had been the foundation of galactic trade for decades. Human shipping companies moved 70% of all cargo between star systems. Human banks provided the credit that financed colony development across 17 sectors. Human factories produced everything from starship parts to medical supplies that kept alien worlds running. "Sir," Commander Foster said quietly, "how long before the Council realizes what they have done to themselves?" Nicole studied the tactical display. Red warning lights marked failing infrastructure, collapsing governments, and rising chaos throughout what had been stable Council territory just days before. "I think they are beginning to understand right now," she answered. The scale of the collapse was staggering. On the Outer Rim, human agricultural advisors had been teaching alien farmers how to grow food in harsh conditions. Without them, crops were already beginning to fail. In the core worlds, human medical researchers had been developing treatments for alien diseases. Without them, hospitals were running out of critical medicines. Lieutenant Peterson reported new intelligence. "Admiral, the Beltar Confederacy is requesting emergency assistance. Their defense grid has malfunctioned, and they cannot repair it without human technicians." "Log their request and file it away," Nicole said. They made their choice. What the Council had never understood was how deeply integrated humans had become in galactic civilization. They had not conquered anyone or forced their way into power. They had simply made themselves useful. Indispensable, as it turned out. Human engineers maintained the power systems on dozens of alien worlds. Human doctors staffed medical centers across the galaxy. Human teachers educated alien children in schools throughout Council space. Human scientists worked in research facilities on every major world. Human peacekeepers patrolled trade routes that connected hundreds of star systems. All of that was ending now. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, We are getting reports from our recall stations. The aliens are beginning to panic. On New Geneva Station, the crystalline beings are offering to triple our salaries if we stay. On Titan Base, the Aquatic Alliance is promising full citizenship rights to any humans who remain. Tell them all the same thing, Nicole replied. Every human returns to human space. No exceptions, no delays, no negotiations. Commander Foster studied his tactical display. The numbers are incredible, Admiral. We provided 60% of the galaxy's patrol coverage, 90% of the rapid response capability, 40% of the medical care, 70% of the advanced manufacturing. And they never realized it, Nicole said. They saw our expansion as a threat instead of recognizing our contribution. Senator Wright's image flickered back onto the screen. Admiral, I have one more update. The Colonial Assembly has made a decision about what comes next. We are not just withdrawing from Council space. We are beginning to build something new. Nicole raised an eyebrow. Explain. The independent human colonies that were technically in Council territory are declaring their sovereignty. 47 worlds are establishing their own government outside Council authority. Several non-human species have approached us about forming new alliances. This was the part that would terrify the Council leadership. Humans were not just leaving, they were creating competition. They were building an alternative to the Council's authority. There is more, Senator Wright continued. Our intelligence networks report that at least 12 species are considering leaving the Council to join us. They have seen how quickly things fell apart without human involvement. Nicole smiled for the first time in days. So we are not just escaping their cage, we are showing others that the cage has no real locks. On the view screen, Earth hung beautiful and blue in space, surrounded by the greatest concentration of human military power in history. Every recalled ship, every returned soldier, every evacuated civilian represented capability that the Council had taken for granted. They had tried to limit human growth and human power. Instead, they had concentrated it. They had tried to keep humans under control. Instead, they had set them free to build something better. The real irony was that humans had been holding back. For decades, they had been careful not to advance too quickly, not to threaten the established order, not to make the older species feel inadequate. Now those restraints were gone. Admiral, Commander Foster said softly, I think we just became the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Nicole looked out at the stars that no longer represented limits, but opportunities. No, Commander. We just became the most free. Oh, Captain Daniel Brooks piloted his reconnaissance ship through what had once been the wealthy Meridian sector. Now it looked like a graveyard of broken dreams and abandoned hopes. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Dear God, whispered his co-pilot, Lieutenant Amy Peterson, staring at their sensor readings. The Korthak Federation has completely fallen apart. I am reading massive refugee movements toward the galactic core. Daniel nodded grimly as he studied the data streams flowing across his screens. The Korthak had been one of the loudest voices calling for human restrictions. Their industrial worlds had relied completely on human-designed manufacturing systems and human-trained workers. When those systems began breaking down without proper maintenance, their entire civilization had collapsed within weeks. What is the status of the synthetic collective? Daniel asked. Still trying to fill the power vacuum, but they are overextended everywhere. Without human cybersecurity protocols, they are vulnerable to data corruption attacks from rogue artificial intelligence entities. They are actually losing control of their own synthetic populations. The bitter irony was not lost on Daniel. The collective had voted for human restrictions partly because they feared human artificial intelligence research would challenge their dominance. Now, without human security innovations, they were facing exactly the kind of artificial intelligence rebellion they had tried to prevent. A priority message flashed on their communication console. Admiral Barnes appeared from aboard the UCS Defiance, her expression unreadable. Captain Brooks, we have just received a formal diplomatic request from the Galactic Council. They are asking for a meeting to discuss mutual concerns and shared interests. Daniel could not help but snort with dark humor. Let me guess. They want us to come back and fix their problems for them. More than that. Our intelligence sources suggest they are prepared to offer humanity a permanent seat on the Council's executive board and complete independence over our territorial expansion. Too little? Too late? Admiral Barnes paused before answering. That decision belongs to the Colonial Assembly. But I thought you should know. We are not the only ones they have contacted. Reports indicate several species are being offered similar deals. The implications hit Daniel like a physical blow. The Council was not just trying to lure humanity back, they were desperately trying to prevent complete governmental collapse by offering major concessions to any species capable of maintaining basic stability. Lieutenant Peterson pulled up the latest intelligence reports on her screen. Sir, you should see this information. The Zeridian Empire is breaking apart. 3 of their core worlds have declared independence, and 2 more are requesting human protection. Daniel studied the incoming data carefully. It painted a picture of systematic collapse across every major galactic power. The Beltar Confederacy was fighting a civil war between 3 different factions. The Aquatic Alliance had lost contact with half their underwater cities when the communication networks failed. Even the ancient and supposedly stable crystalline hierarchy was reporting critical structural damage to their primary computation cores. It is not just economic or military collapse, Lieutenant Peterson observed. This is complete civilizational failure across the board. These societies were more dependent on human contributions than anyone ever realized. A new communication arrived, this one directly from Earth's Colonial Assembly. Senator Helen Wright appeared on their main screen, her expression grave but determined. Captain Brooks, I am broadcasting this message to all human vessels currently conducting reconnaissance operations. The Colonial Assembly has reached a unanimous decision regarding the Council's desperate offers. Daniel leaned forward, curious about humanity's response to what amounted to complete surrender by their former oppressors. We are prepared to consider renewed diplomatic relations, Senator Wright continued, but only under very specific conditions. First, the complete dissolution of the current Galactic Council structure. Second, the establishment of a completely new interstellar organization based on voluntary cooperation rather than centralized control. Third, absolute recognition of human independence over our territories and research initiatives. The senator paused, letting the full implications of her words settle in. We are not interested in returning to our former subordinate position within their failing system. We are interested in building something completely different, something that recognizes the reality of interstellar relations rather than the comfortable illusions they have been living under. As the message ended, Daniel turned to his co-pilot. Amy, I think we are about to witness the birth of an entirely new galactic order. Either that, she replied, studying the chaos spreading across their sensor displays, or the complete end of interstellar civilization as we have known it. Both possibilities seemed equally likely as they watched the old galaxy die around them. The reports kept coming in from across known space. The Trade Guild had suspended all operations because their human-managed logistics networks had collapsed. The Medical Alliance was rationing basic medicines because human pharmaceutical companies had withdrawn from the market. The Educational Consortium had closed 60% of their schools because human teachers and administrators were gone. But perhaps most telling were the secret communications their intelligence division had intercepted. Desperate messages between council species, trying to figure out how to maintain basic functions without human expertise. Panicked discussions about which worlds to abandon as their infrastructure failed. Frightened conversations about approaching human colonies directly for help, bypassing the council entirely. Sir, Lieutenant Peterson said quietly, look at this data stream. It shows the cascading failure pattern across council space. Each failed system creates problems for connected systems, which then fail and create more problems. Daniel studied the visualization she had created. It looked like a disease spreading through a body, or dominoes falling in an endless chain reaction. The removal of human capability from galactic civilization had not just created gaps, it had triggered systemic collapse. The council leadership still does not understand what happened, Daniel realized. They think this is a temporary crisis that can be solved by negotiation. They do not realize that they built their entire civilization on a foundation they did not even know existed. Amy nodded as she processed more incoming intelligence. And now that foundation is gone forever. Even if humans wanted to go back and fix everything, it would take decades to rebuild what has been lost in just 3 months. But the most important realization was yet to come. As they watched the data streams showing the collapse of the old order, they could also see the first signs of something new emerging. Human colonies were forming defense partnerships with non-council species. Human research stations were sharing breakthrough technologies with anyone willing to cooperate rather than dominate. Human merchants were establishing trade networks based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Amy, Daniel said slowly, I do not think we are just watching the end of the old galaxy. I think we are watching the birth of something much better. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was absolutely clear. There would be no going back to the way things were before. President Karen Mitchell stood in the newly built assembly hall on Luna, looking out at representatives from 23 different species. 1 year had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy had been reborn. The shining chamber, built with human efficiency and alien artistic beauty, represented something that had never existed before, a truly voluntary union of equals. Friends and colleagues, President Mitchell began, her voice carrying to every corner of the Great Hall. Today we formally establish the Interstellar Cooperative Alliance. This is not a government to rule over us, but a framework for working together and sharing prosperity. The assembled delegates represented a fascinating mixture of survivors and opportunity seekers. Some, like the representatives from the Aquatic Alliance, had come seeking the stability that only human organizations seemed able to provide. Others, like the recently contacted species from the Far Rim territories, had never been part of the old council system and were eager to participate in something completely new. Notably absent were the major powers that had orchestrated humanity's expulsion from the original council. The Korthak Federation had dissolved entirely, with its surviving populations now living as refugees in human-protected territories. The synthetic collective had broken apart into dozens of competing artificial intelligence factions that spent more time fighting each other than governing anyone. The Zeridian Empire existed only as a handful of isolated worlds, their once grand civilization reduced to barely functional city-states. Admiral Nicole Barnes, now serving as Secretary of Defense for the new alliance, delivered the security briefing. The old council territories are largely stable now. Human peacekeeping forces have established safety corridors along all major trade routes. Piracy incidents are down 93% from the chaos period immediately following our withdrawal, Dr. Patricia Stone, promoted to Director of Interspecies Research, presented the technological developments. Our joint research initiatives are showing remarkable progress. By combining human innovation with Beltar biotechnology and crystalline computational theory, we have achieved breakthrough advances in medicine, agriculture, and space travel that benefit everyone involved. But the most significant change was not technological or military, it was philosophical. Under the old council system, species had been ranked in an unofficial hierarchy based on age, territory size, and political influence. Humans, as the newest members, had been kept in junior status despite their obvious capabilities. The Interstellar Cooperative Alliance operated on completely different principles. Membership was voluntary and could be ended at any time by any member. Decisions required agreement from everyone rather than simple majority votes. Most importantly, no species was considered naturally superior to any other species. The old system failed, President Mitchell explained to the assembled delegates, because it was based on fear and control rather than cooperation and mutual benefit. We tried to limit each other's growth rather than help it flourish. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now serving as the Alliance's first Director General, stood to present the final agenda item: membership applications from the remaining council species. We have received formal requests from the surviving Beltar Confederacy, 3 Zeridian successor states, and even some elements of the former synthetic collective, he announced. Each application will be considered based on its individual merits and commitment to our cooperative principles. The irony was profound but not lost on anyone present. The same species that had tried to limit human expansion were now begging to join a human-led organization. They had gone from trying to cage humanity to desperately seeking human protection and guidance. Chancellor Vexthal himself had sent a personal appeal just days before this meeting. The once proud insectoid leader, now governing only a single star system, had acknowledged his grave errors in judgment and requested an opportunity to contribute to the galaxy's bright future under human leadership. "What is our response to the former Chancellor?" asked Dr. Carl Thompson, the Alliance's ethics advisor. Jake's expression remained carefully neutral. "The same as our response to all applicants. Demonstrate your commitment to cooperative principles, contribute something meaningful to our shared goals, and prove that you have learned from past mistakes." But the real test cases were not the fallen powers begging for readmission. The real success stories were species like the peaceful monks of Serenity Prime, who had abandoned their council membership to join the Human Alliance after experiencing the protection and prosperity it offered, or the nomad fleets, who had discovered that voluntary cooperation produced better results than forced compliance. As the formal session concluded, President Mitchell reflected on the remarkable transformation that had occurred. Humanity's forced exile had revealed the fundamental weakness of the old galactic system, its dependence on structures that discouraged excellence and innovation in favor of comfortable mediocrity and familiar hierarchies. The new galaxy emerging from that collapse was more dynamic, more diverse, and more prosperous than anyone had imagined possible. Trade networks operated more efficiently under voluntary agreements than they had under council regulations. Research progressed faster with cooperative sharing than it had under competitive secrecy. Security was maintained more effectively by willing allies than it had been by reluctant conscripts forced to work together. But perhaps most importantly, every species was now free to reach their full potential without artificial limitations imposed by others' fears and insecurities. "Madam President," Admiral Barnes said privately as the delegates filed out of the Great Hall, "do you ever wonder what might have happened if the Council had simply treated us as equals from the very beginning?" President Mitchell gazed through the chamber's transparent dome at the stars beyond, stars that now represented unlimited opportunity rather than imposed constraints for every species brave enough to reach for them. "I think, Admiral, that we would never have learned what we were truly capable of achieving. The old Galactic Council had sought to contain humanity and had failed catastrophically. In doing so, they had accidentally unleashed something far more powerful and lasting. Proof that cooperation could triumph over domination, that voluntary association was stronger than forced compliance, and that the future belonged to those brave enough to build it together as equals. The galaxy would never be the same again, and for the first time in centuries, that was exactly what everyone wanted. Species that had spent millennia accepting limitations were discovering freedoms they had never imagined. Worlds that had struggled under bureaucratic control were flourishing, under cooperative guidance. The age of empires built on fear was ending. The age of alliances built on hope had begun. And at the center of it all, humanity had found its true purpose. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species that had shown everyone else what was possible when beings worked together as equals toward shared dreams among the stars.